What use is all this wealth if I have no son to inherit it? Amara, what kind of woman are you? Years of marriage, and you cannot give me one child. Not one. But what her husband didn't know was that rejection would become her rebirth. Years later, in a hall filled with music and pride, he would look up and see the woman he once mocked walking in with triplets and a destiny brighter than his empire. Lagos never sleeps. From the crowded streets of Balogun Market to the nightclubs on Victoria Island, it was in this city of noise and neon lights that a woman named Amara lived. She was striking but not loud. Her beauty lay in her resilience. Her caramel skin glowed even under hardship, and her eyes carried warmth even in sorrow. She was married to Obi, a man with ambition bigger than the Lagos skyline. In the beginning, they were a team, hustling through the chaos of Lagos together. Obi sold auto parts in Ladipo Market, shouting over the din of mechanics and apprentices. Amara followed, carrying trays of food to sell, counting every penny, encouraging him when business was slow. Through hunger, through debt, through endless nights in a tiny Mushin apartment, they clung to each other. When Obi dreamed of owning a shop, it was Amara who saved their money in a small tin. When Obi finally opened his first shop in Surulere, Amara painted the signboard and prayed over the doorway. Years passed. Obi prospered. The Surulere shop became a dealership, with apprentices running around and customers streaming in. They moved into a duplex in Ikeja. Obi bought cars. Their table never lacked food. But their house lacked one thing, the cry of a child. At first, Obi was tender. After yet another negative test, he held Amara's hands and whispered, "Don't worry, my love. God's time is the best. We will laugh last." But Lagos has a way of changing men when money comes. As months turned into years, Obi's whispers hardened into knives. What use is all this wealth if I have no son to inherit it? Amara, what kind of woman are you? Years of marriage, and you cannot give me one child. Not one. The insults grew. Neighbors began to gossip. Even at church, pitying prayers sounded more like accusations. That's Obi's wife. Fine woman, but barren. Imagine, after all his money, no child. Amara bore it silently, crying into her pillow at night, praying for a miracle. But what she did not know was this: the fault was not hers. Years ago, Obi had gone for a medical test. The doctor had told him the truth plainly. Your sperm count is critically low. Fathering a child will be almost impossible. But Obi buried the report in shame. In his pride, he could not admit weakness. In his pride, it was easier to brand Amara as barren than face his truth. And so, Amara carried a shame that was never hers. One fateful evening, Amara returned home from the market, her hands heavy with groceries. She pushed open the bedroom door, then froze. There was Obi, her husband, in their matrimonial bed, with Adiz. Adiz, younger, light-skinned, draped in silk sheets. Obi laughed carelessly, as if he owned the world. Obi, in our bed? In our home. Our home? This is my house. And this is a real woman. Unlike you. Adiz smirked, adjusting the sheets, unashamed. You are cursed, Amara. Years wasted with you. A barren woman who cannot bear fruit. From tonight, pack your things. I want a divorce. You are not fit to be my wife. He pulled her suitcase from the wardrobe, throwing her clothes onto the floor. Amara fell to her knees, weeping. Neighbors gathered outside, whispering as the humiliation spilled into the compound. Chai, he is sending her away? Just like that. Go. Leave my house. You are a curse to me. And so, under the cruel eyes of neighbors and strangers, Amara was cast out of the home she had helped build, abandoned for another woman. That night, she left with nothing but her tears and a small bag of clothes. Amara moved into a tiny one-room apartment in Ajegunle. The building smelled of kerosene and gutter water, the walls cracked, the bathroom shared by 4 families. Each night, she lay on a thin mattress, listening to children's laughter outside, her chest tightening with grief. Mockery followed her everywhere. See her. Obi's ex-wife. The barren woman. She wasted his time. Now he has moved on with Adiz. Even some relatives advised her to visit shrines, to drink concoctions, to beg prophets. But Amara was too broken, too tired. To be called barren in marriage is not just to be insulted. It is to be stripped of identity. It is to be told you are not woman enough. It is a wound that festers in silence. But in that valley of shame, a spark of resilience refused to die. One afternoon, her elderly neighbor, Mama Ngozi, found her sitting outside, staring blankly. "My daughter, Lagos will eat you if you let it. Stand up. Start again. Use your hands. Even ashes can become thread if you weave them." Those words planted a seed. The next morning, Amara used her last 10,000 Nigerian nairas to fry puff puff and akara by the roadside. Children came with coins. Mechanics bought snacks before heading to work. Slowly, coins filled her wooden box. By the second month, she was saving. By the third, she met Mama Ngozi again, who invited her to learn tailoring in her little shop. "Your hands are neat. Come, I will teach you. Not everything is bought with money. Some things are bought with character." So Amara split her days, frying akara in the mornings, sewing in the afternoons. The hum of the sewing machine became her new prayer. With every stitch, she mended her soul. Sometimes healing does not come through miracles. Sometimes it comes through busy hands and the kindness of strangers. Ajegunle was harsh, but it taught resilience. The crowded streets, the smell of roasted corn, the chants of "hold your bag, hold your phone," all became part of Amara's healing. Each morning, she fried akara and puff puff before dawn, selling to school children and workers rushing to bus stops. By mid-morning, her coins clinked in a wooden box. By noon, she was bent over a sewing machine at Mama Ngozi's shop. The shop was tiny, just 2 old machines, fabric stacked on shelves, and women gossiping as they waited for fittings. But for Amara, it was more than a shop. It was therapy. Her pain became her thread, her sorrow her fabric. With each stitch, she sewed resilience into existence. Soon, neighbors noticed. Her blouses fit better, her wrappers sat gracefully. Women began whispering, "Do it like Amara's style." One rainy evening, fate brought Chike into her life. The rain poured hard, flooding the streets, forcing danfos to stall mid-road. Amara stood under a zinc shelter, shielding her unsold puff-puff with nylon. A man ducked under the same shelter, his clothes drenched. He carried carved wooden stools under a wrapper. Chike smiling politely. "This rain does not respect anybody. Even my stools are tired." Amara chuckled, her first genuine laugh in months. They spoke as the rain drummed above them. Chike was a carpenter, a widower, raising a small daughter. He carved furniture by hand and sold them across Surulere. Wood is patient. If you listen, it tells you what shape it wants to become. His words lingered in her heart. Patient. That was what she needed to be, with herself, with life. Months passed. Amara's designs became bolder. She blended Ankara with denim, a dyer with silk. She sewed dresses that carried Lagos itself, colorful, loud, unapologetic. Social media soon noticed. A fashion blogger at Yaba Market spotted one of her dresses and posted it. "Who is this Amara Designs? Lagos, we need more of this fire." The post went viral. Orders doubled. Women came from Surulere, Yaba, even Lekki. Amara worked late into the night, candles flickering, her fingers blistered but her spirit alive. The same woman once mocked as barren was now birthing creations the city could not ignore. Through it all, Chike was constant. He often stopped by Mama Ngozi's shop, sometimes to sell stools, other times just to sit quietly. His daughter adored Amara, often tugging at her wrapper and begging for dresses. One evening, as they walked home from the market, Chike spoke. "Amara, I don't know all your story. But I know this, scars are proof that we survived. If you ever want someone to walk beside you, not in front, not behind, but beside, I would be honored." Tears stung her eyes. She had been discarded, cold-cursed, but here was a man offering respect, not pity. Slowly, their bond deepened. When he proposed months later in a quiet ceremony, Amara said yes, not out of desperation, but because she had found a partner who valued her heart. They married modestly in Yaba. No grand spectacle, just true friends, neighbors, and Mama Ngozi ululating with joy. For the first time, Amara's home felt like peace. Her biggest break came at Lagos Fashion Week. A stylist who had discovered her work on Instagram invited her to showcase. Amara poured her soul into the collection. Each gown was named after her journey: courage, resilience, dignity, hope. Models walked the runway in bold colors, their outfits telling a story of survival. The audience rose in applause. Journalists scribbled furiously. A Vogue correspondent tweeted, "Amara Designs just stole the Lagos show. African resilience stitched into fabric." Overnight, her following exploded. Orders flooded in from London, New York, Johannesburg. Her name became synonymous with strength and beauty. Months later, the invitation arrived: Paris Fashion Week. Amara's heart raced as she boarded her first international flight. The girl once mocked in Ajegunle now sat on a plane to Paris, her designs packed carefully in garment bags. On the runway in Paris, models strutted in outfits inspired by Lagos street life, Ankara patched with denim, Gelly-inspired headpieces, bold prints screaming survival. The crowd gasped. The fashion press called her the Lagos Phoenix. CNN interviewed her backstage. "You've gone from being abandoned to standing on global stages. What do you want women worldwide to know? That your worth is not defined by another's pride. Even in betrayal, you can rise. Even in rejection, you can bloom." Her words went viral. Soon after, Milan invited her. At Milan Fashion Week, she closed the show with a gown embroidered with 3 golden threads. Unknown to the audience, she was already pregnant with triplets. The crowd gave a standing ovation. Back in Lagos, Amara discovered she was pregnant. At first, she was cautious, fearing disappointment. But the scans confirmed it: not 1, not 2, but 3 lives growing inside her. She collapsed in tears of gratitude. The womb once mocked as barren carried triplets. The curse spoken over her was shattered. Her children were born healthy, a boy and 2 girls. Their names: Chimdi, God is with me; Obi Anuju, born in abundance; Ifeananya, love. The naming ceremony was a festival. Neighbors danced, drums beat, women ululated. The same mouths that once mocked her now praised her. Amara that they called barren. Triplets. God is wonderful. Amara's story now traveled the globe. From Ajegunle to Paris, her face was on magazines, her interviews inspiring millions. She launched a cooperative to teach abandoned women tailoring and business skills. Her designs were sold in boutiques from Lagos to London. But destiny was not finished. One afternoon, Obi's business empire had grown. His dealership in Surulere was now a landmark, his name whispered with respect among traders. He drove convoys of cars, dined with politicians, and boasted loudly of his success. Beside him stood Adiz, beautiful, glamorous, always with designer handbags and imported wigs. Together, they were the picture of wealth. But behind the glitter, rumors swirled. Years had passed, and Adiz too had not conceived. Whispers in the market grew sharper. So the problem was never Amara?
And?
How come even this Adiz has no child?
Sure.
Don't say it too loud. Pride will not let Obi accept the truth. Obi silenced the whispers with money and arrogance. He hosted lavish parties, donated at churches, posed for magazines. But deep down, he was haunted. The truth he buried years ago, the doctor's report, clawed at him every night. One afternoon, Amara opened a golden embossed envelope delivered to her studio. Inside was an invitation. By the grace of God and in celebration of success, I, Obi, invite you to the wedding ceremony of myself and Adiz at the Grand Sapphire Hotel, Victoria Island. The letter oozed pride. To others, it looked like courtesy. But to Amara, it was clear: Obi was mocking her, daring her to witness his so-called victory. For a moment, pain flickered. But then she smiled faintly. Nkechi, her assistant, exhaled a low whistle.
Nawa. He get mind.
Amara stood very still, the card glinting in her fingers. The studio sounds faded until she could hear her own breath. She thought of a one-room in Mushin long ago, of rain seeping through a cracked ceiling, of counting pennies under a lantern while a man's pride grew louder than love. She thought of a bedroom door swinging open and her world falling in. A soft voice broke the spell.
What does it say?
Chaik was by the sample table, sanding a small wooden mannequin.
He made such pieces for her.
Sometimes, he said, a man calls thunder to his own roof and blames the rain. Amara laughed. short, surprised.
You always have proverb. He shrugged. Wood has taught me.
Pride is a nail, it rusts from the inside. Nkechi, peeking like a guilty child, whispered, Madam, a beg, don't go. Then, quickly, or go.
Go and shine. Choose one.
Amara looked down at the gold card again. The arrogance was perfume, it rose from the page. Come and see my victory, it said. Come stand in the audience of my pride. She slipped the invitation into its envelope and set it aside. I won't go to prove anything, she said, to herself as much as to them. If I go, it will be to tell the truth without opening my mouth. That night, after the triplets finally surrendered to sleep, Amara stood on the balcony with Chaik. Lagos lay below them like a living constellation, red brake lights, blue kiosks, yellow bulbs, silver water. Somewhere a generator coughed awake.
Somewhere a baby cried.
Somewhere a man told a woman he was sorry, and the apology did or did not hold. I used to be afraid of this city, Amara said.
It looked too big to forgive me.
Chaik wrapped an arm gently around her waist.
Lagos did not forgive you, he said. You forgave Lagos.
She leaned into him, breathed once, deeply.
Then we'll go, she said. We'll walk in without anger. If truth decides to speak, we will not cover its mouth.
He kissed the side of her head. We will go as who we are, he said.
You, Amara the mother. Amara the maker. Amara the cornerstone.
Victoria Island wore its wealth like a glass dress. The Grand Sapphire Hotel gleamed, marble floors, chandeliers that pretended to be stars, walls that mirrored every curtsy, every smirk. Outside, convoys nosed forward like silver fish. Inside, the air smelled of perfume, polished wood, and pride. In the groom's suite, Obi stood before a floor-length mirror. His custom Italian suit held him like a boast, cufflinks winked, his stomach pressed comfortably at the buttons.
He lifted his chin.
The man staring back at him looked like a headline. His best man fiddled nervously with a boutonniere.
Obi, he ventured. Are you sure? About what? Inviting her.
Obi smiled slowly, a crocodile in shallow water.
Let her see, he said. Let Lagos see.
Some people only respect a man when he is crowned. In the bridal room, Adiz floated on a sea of vanity. Makeup artist, hairstylist, stylist, assistant all orbiting her.
She liked it that way.
She had fought for a life where people hurried when she snapped. The Dubai gown fit like sin and forgiveness.
Diamonds fell at her throat like rain.
Do you think she will come? She asked, examining a small scar on her chin that the artist swiftly disguised.
Who?
Her cousin asked, winking at the mirror.
She knew who. His ex, Adiz said.
The word tasted cheap in her mouth.
The one with the publicity. Her cousin rolled her eyes. She should come and greet greatness. A beg.
Adiz nodded, but something tightened in her chest. She had learned to look expensive and feel nothing. But feeling was a thief. It crept in through the seam. The ceremony turned like a well-oiled machine. Choir harmonies, pastor's cadence, camera sweeps, audience whispers. Obi's smile had the weight of rehearsed joy.
Adiz glowed like investment.
Then a murmur rose at the back, small at first, then a tide.
Who is that? Ha! God of wonders. Is that not?
Amara stood in the doorway. Her dress was hers. Not Dubai, not borrowed. Ankara lace in restrained golds and creams, the print subtle, the cut clean. Beadwork caught the light like hushes. Her geli was soft, a suggestion rather than a crown. She had not come to challenge a queen, she had come as one. Beside her, Chaik was a quiet line in white native wear, no loudness, only steadiness. Behind them, 3 small miracles, a boy and 2 girls, their clothes in pale ivory, their hands interlocked as if they had entered the world promising to never let go.
The choir faltered. A violin squeaked.
Even the AC seemed to hold its breath. The master of ceremonies, a man who could make jokes in a hurricane, cleared his throat. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, please welcome Mrs. Amara Chaik Okafor and family.
Clapping.
It began like drops on zinc, then became rain. Adiz's smile stiffened. Obi's face flickered, shock, anger, panic chasing each other like dogs.
Amara did not hurry.
She walked softly down the aisle, not toward the stage, but toward an empty table near the front. She did not look left or right. When she sat, she adjusted Chimdi's collar and brushed a stray thread from Ifyinanya's cuff. She reached for Chaik's hand under the table. He squeezed once. From the balcony, a cameraman whispered to a reporter, "History has entered the hall." Bands in Lagos know how to play a room. They can make sorrow dance and pride kneel. But even the saxophonist was reading the mood now. He slid into a slow high life, respectful, as waiters passed trays of champagne that no one lifted. Obi felt the hall lean away from him, toward a woman who sat without fidgeting. Rumor singed his ears. Triplets, designer, global, barren who? His hands itched. He rose. Chaik saw him coming and looked at Amara. She nodded once. "Let him come," her eyes said. "Let the river meet the rock." Obi stopped at the table, a smile stretched too tight. "Amara," he said, letting the syllables drag as if he owned them. "You came." She turned, easy. "You invited me," she said, as if explaining whether. He glanced at Chaik with disdain. "And who is this?" "Carpenter." The word was a small blade. Chaik smiled, too warm to cut. "Husband," he said. "Friend." "Witness." "Witness to what?" Obi scoffed. "To the difference between building a house and making a home," Chaik said gently. There was a small sound, someone's fork against glass, too loud. A few guests shifted closer. The band softened further. "Obi," Amara said, "congratulations." She meant it. One day, she would tell the children that sometimes people try to complete themselves with ceremonies when what they need is repentance. But even then, she would not spit when she could speak water. He tried to laugh. It sounded like a cough. "You've improved your vocabulary," he said. "No," she said. "I just stopped using words that hurt me." He opened his mouth. To bruise, to boast, she could not tell. He didn't get the chance. At a table 2 rows away, Elder Nwoke rose, ancient authority in Osso Oak. He was the one who had once shaken his head at Amara and said to Obi, "A man must plant where fruit can grow." He had blessed the divorce with a lazy wave of his hand, as if dissolving life were the same as dismissing a hawker. "Obi," he called now, voice steady as road. "You told us this woman was barren. I see 3 children. Explain it to me so my eyes and ears can agree." The hall went quiet like a secret. Phone cameras lifted in unison, the new congregation. Obi licked his lips. "It's complicated," he said, which is another way of saying I do not wish to be honest. Amara stood. When she stood, the air raised its chin. "It is not complicated," she said, and her voice carried like music does when silence makes way. "Years ago, you took a test. You held the doctor's report in your hand. It said your seed was weak. You hid it, and you made me carry the shame that was never mine." A sound rolled through the crowd, a gasp, a murmur, a prayer someone hadn't meant to say aloud. Adi's hand flew to her neck, to the diamonds that had seemed like answers and now felt like stones. Obi's eyes darted. "Amara, this is a wedding." "Yes," she said. "Once, you made my suffering public. Let truth be public too." Adiz turned to Obi, her voice small and deadly. "Is it true?" "Adiz, later," he pleaded. She took a step back as if from a snake. "Oh," she said. "So I was humbling another woman for you while you hid from yourself." She looked at Amara then, and shame softened her. "I'm sorry," she said. "We do foolish things for crumbs." Amara looked at her, really looked, past the eyelashes, past the contour, past the gown that shimmered like defense. She saw the girl who had believed that taking another woman's house would make her safe. She saw a heart collecting the shards of pride. "Find the door that leads back to yourself," Amara said softly. Adiz's face crumpled. Obi swayed. For a moment, the room slid. He reached for the table but found only air. Amara did not move to steady him. Mercy is not always picking people up where pride has laid them down. Sometimes mercy is letting the ground teach. She turned to the hall. "For every woman who has been blamed and belittled," she said, the words steady, the eyes wet, the back straight, "know this, your worth is not in your womb. It is not in the child you carry or cannot carry, not in the man who stays or leaves. Your worth is in your breath, in your work, in the way you refuse to break." Something snapped then, not a bone, but a binding. Women rose, clapped, ululated. Even men who had learned hardness from fathers found their hands meeting without command. Chaik reached for her hand. She took it. The triplets, startled, began to clap too, their small palms bright with delight. Obi found his chair and folded into it. Sweat moved down his temple like slow regret. He tried to lift his head but discovered shame is heavy. He had expected a triumph and received a mirror. The master of ceremonies, a professional at catching dropped dignity, raised the mic and did the only thing he could. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, voice aching, "the truth is not always sweet, but it is always food. Can I get an amen?" The hall gave him one. When Amara rose to leave, she did not look toward the stage. She did not scan the room for approval. She gathered her children with the carefulness of someone picking flowers from a field that once held thorns. The crowd parted like respect must. As they approached the door, an old woman in Geli touched Amara's arm. "Daughter," she said, "you have washed the stain from many names today." Amara pressed the woman's hand to her cheek. "Mama, God washed mine first." Photographers flashed. A blogger whispered, "This caption will write itself." A teenage girl pressed her palms together and whispered, "One day." Behind them, Obi sat in a hall that had turned from celebration to lesson. He had wanted to mock a woman. Instead, he'd been introduced to himself. Lagos moves fast, but it remembers. By morning, the story had sprouted into a forest. Obi exposed at Grand Sapphire. She walked into his wedding with triplets. And the truth. Pastor reacts. Pride is a prison. Amara speaks. A woman's worth is in her will. Clips circled. An auntie sent a link in every family WhatsApp group. A barber paused mid-fade to watch the moment Amara said seed and the hall inhaled. A market woman wiped her eyes and sold 2 extra paint buckets of tomatoes. Adiz deleted her photos. Gossip pages said she traveled. One claimed she was seen in church, another that she had started selling hair online, another that she'd cut all her wigs and wept. The truth was simpler. She went home to the small room in Festac where her mother kept a Bible under a pillow and a pile of wrappers by the chair. For 3 days, Adiz slept. 4/6, she did not post. 4/9, she woke with a new prayer. God, give me the kind of beauty that survives indoors. Obi's world did not collapse in a headline. It sagged. That is how empires go when their foundations are boasting and borrowed miracles. Customers still came to the dealership, but the apprentices snickered when his back turned. A politician who used to slap his shoulders and laugh now checked his watch when Obi approached. Even his mother called to say, gently, "My son, truth is a tide. You can't hold it with a broom." He ate alone. He spoke aloud to empty rooms. He opened the drawer and read the report until the letters blurred. Sperm count. Critically low. Probability. Less than 5%. He whispered into the space. I should have told her. Then, to the ceiling. I should have told myself. He texted, I'm sorry. 1 minute. Delivered. 2 minutes. Read. 10 minutes. Reply. Peace. He stared at the single word the way a starving man stares at bread behind glass. Meanwhile, Amara's studio grew like a good rumor. Women came, those who had been cast out by in-laws, those who had fled fists, those who had hidden their faces at baby showers. They came with hands that knew how to work and hearts that needed permission to dream. She and Mom Ngozi met them where they were and walked them to where they could be. They named it the Cornerstone Cooperative. The logo was simple. A stone, 3 gold threads, a needle pointing forward. They bought machines, taught stitches, opened accounts, printed labels. Halima, once chased from her husband's compound for wasting seasons, opened a shop with 2 apprentices and laughed like rain. Ngozi, a different Ngozi, this one small, fierce, brilliant with spices, started a chin-chin business that ended up in actual supermarkets, her logo a smiling girl with flour on her cheeks. Uche learned to cut, Zainab learned to cost, Esther learned to say no in a voice that did not tremble. NGOs noticed. A bank called to sponsor classes. A TV producer requested an interview. A pastor said, bring your story on Sunday, and Amara wore a simple dress and told the truth without embellishment. I was not barren. Even if I had been, I would still be enough. One afternoon, a letter arrived with the restraint of old money and the excitement of a new door. Paris Fashion Week invites Amara Designs. to present a capsule titled The Cornerstone. She read it, laughed once, put her head on the table, and thanked God the way children thank, with gulping joy. Chaik lifted her gently into a hug. "I told you," he murmured into her hair. "Your gift is a passport." "Then Lagos will still be my home country," she said, wiping her eyes. "No visa can change that." Months turned to marker lines on the studio wall. Fittings. Tickets. Visas. Fabrics. The triplets learned to say Milan with a soft L. On the plane, Amara woke at cloud light and wrote notes for her show in the quiet rhythm her life had taught her. Courage, a dress in indigo with beaded shoulders like lifted chins. Dignity, cream silk with minimalist lines, a refusal to shout. Mercy, soft green, movement like forgiveness. Seed, 3 golden threads embroidered into the hem, visible only if you bowed to look. Backstage at the show, models stood like sculptures waiting for breath. Amara touched each garment the way a mother checks a child's forehead, just long enough to know, not long enough to smother. When the lights rose and the music found the room, the audience saw Africa without stereotype. Structure, story, subtlety. They saw Lagos translated, not diluted. They saw a woman who had made pain into pattern and faith into fabric. At the end, when she stepped onto the runway to bow, the hall rose like a sea lifting a boat. Flashbulbs popped. Someone shouted, "Brava!" In the second row, a young black girl cried quietly into her mother's scarf and said, "One day." A journalist from CNN caught Amara by a rack of dresses and asked the question stories always attract. From Ajegunle to Milan, what do you want women to hear when they hear your name? Amara thought of rain on zinc, of money in a tin, of a bedroom door opening on betrayal, of puff-puff oil, of a kerosene lamp, of 3 heartbeats on a hospital monitor. She thought of a wedding hall where truth walked in softly and sat down. "That no rejection is final," she said. "That no insult defines you. They called me barren, but I was never barren. They called me cursed, but I was blessed all along. The stone they rejected has become the cornerstone. And so can you." The clip traveled faster than gossip, across languages, across borders. A seamstress in Kampala watched it on a cracked phone. A nurse in Makurdi sent it to her sister. A girl in Peckham saved it to her favorites. Hope is a contagious thing when it has a face. The Cornerstone Cooperative became the Cornerstone Foundation. A new building in Surulere rose, bright rooms with big windows, tables arranged like possibilities. There were classes for tailoring and catering, yes, but also for pricing, branding, digital skills, self-defense, self-respect. Mothers came with babies tied to their backs. Teenagers came with fire in their eyes. Grandmothers came with notebooks and questions like arrows. Every certificate day, the music spilled into the street. Amara never stopped sewing. Power is safest in people who still use their hands. She would stand at a machine, foot on the pedal, and feel the old rhythm steady her. Make, mend, move. She designed uniforms for a girls' school that could not afford to choose between dignity and cost. She made a wedding dress for a woman who thought she'd never need one, and when the woman cried in the fitting, Amara held the mirror, not the tears. In the evenings, the balcony was a ritual. Chaik with a glass of kunu, Amara with zobo, the children below in the compound playing police and thief, the sunset smearing the sky with colors that even fabric could not imitate. "What are you thinking?" Chaik would ask. "That I am not angry anymore," she would say. "And what else? That I am grateful to the God who wastes nothing." Sometimes, truth brought visitors. A woman from Obi's church came to say, "I was wrong about you. Forgive me." An old apprentice from his dealership arrived with a tuft of humility and said, "I mocked you once. I am sorry." Amara received both the same way. Tea first, laughter second, story last. Obi learned what silence really was. It wasn't the absence of sound, it was the absence of witness. He stood at windows the way a child stands at a locked sweet shop, longing, angry, confused at his own hunger. People still bought cars, money still came, success still posed for the camera. But the phone stopped ringing after 10 p.m., and the jokes stopped before they reached him. He tried the old armors: wine, company, purchases. Pride is a stubborn tailor, it keeps stitching even when the cloth is ash. But nothing fit like before. He could not dress his emptiness. One night, the generator stuttered and died, and Obi, in the sudden dark, saw himself reflected in the black window. a man shaped like a headline and hollow as one after the news moves on. He took the old report from the drawer and read it like confession. He folded it and put it back and took it out again, and did that until morning. He did a wise thing then, though too late to be clever. He went to see a counselor, sat in a small office where chairs did not pretend to be thrones, and said, "I lost a good woman to my pride.
Tell me how not to lose myself too."
The counselor did not clap. He gave Obi homework, apologies that could not be performed in public, honesty that could not be photographed, charity that required receipts to no one. Healing is not glamorous. It sweats like a mechanic under a bus.
Obi did the work slowly.
He visited his mother and listened instead of waiting to be fed. He sent money to a boys' school quietly. He went to church and sat at the back. And when he next saw Amara at an event, awards night, daisies and speeches, he nodded from afar.
She nodded back. Nothing more. It was enough. Peace can be a look and nothing else.
On a night that smelled of rain and roasted corn, the foundation hosted a graduation. Mom Ngozi, regal in blue, gave a speech that made jokes of struggle and gave struggle its due weight. The triplets, taller now, handed out certificates with an efficiency that made aunties smile, and Chaik stood by the door, greeting every parent like an old friend.
Amara took the mic at the end.
She did not preach, she listed names. Halima, who was chased away, now employs 3 people. Ngozi, whose husband mocked her, supplies 4 supermarkets.
Uche started with a needle and made a brand.
Zainab learned coding and now handles our website. Esther says no to nonsense and yes to herself. Laughter, applause, ululation. Then she said softly, "And I, Amara, am simply grateful." Later on the balcony, Lagos yawned and stretched her lights. Amara leaned into Chaik, and he into her. Downstairs, Ifeananya argued that Chimdi had cheated at Ludo and Obianuju mediated like a tiny judge. Amara thought of the invitation on gold paper and every letter in her life that had arrived unasked. She thought of a door she had once knelt at, and a door she had later walked through. She thought of the day she would tell this story to grandchildren and to girls who would never meet her but would call her name as a direction. She whispered into the evening, "Thank you," and left it at that, because some prayers are better when they are lighter than air. Across town, a man in a large house watched a documentary on a small screen, Amara, From Tears to Thread to Triumph. The camera caught her smile and froze it as the narrator said, "The stone the builders rejected," Obi closed his eyes and finished the sentence under his breath, "has become the cornerstone." A tear slid, not performative, not public, simply true. This is how a story ends when truth refuses to be silent, and grace refuses to be small. The woman once mocked as barren becomes a mother, of 3, and of thousands. The man who crowned himself with pride learns to walk bareheaded under mercy.
And the city that watched becomes a witness.
For indeed, the stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone.